All right, so you're planning your participation in the Birchbark Expedition. We're excited to have you joining us this season and want to make it the best possible experience. Being prepared makes all the difference in the world. In this, the first of many training modules, we'll go over the key resources and training that our crews should have completed before heading out to their expedition. Hey everyone, I'm Alan Percy. I'm one of the co-chairs for Birchbark Expedition and so glad you could be joining us for today's Advisor Orientation Part 1. Joining us is also Hank Stupinski. He's one of our co-chairs who has responsibility over guide training and also over our NCAP accreditation. And thank you, Hank, for being here.
So welcome, everybody. I want to thank you for joining us today. As Al said, I am responsible for our training and accreditation programs, and I too have taken the trek with my sons 3 times. Once when they were really young and once when they were in college. And I got to tell you, Mark, if you got the opportunity, convince them to come out because it's really worth it. A different experience every time we go out with them. So thank you and enjoy the presentation.
Thanks for coming. And also joining us is Dave Bliss. He's also one of our co-chairs. And Dave, thanks for being here with us today.
Yep, glad to be here, Alan.
Awesome, fantastic. All right, let's move on. Let's start out with talking about our objectives for today. So as I kind of hinted in the opening, this really is a train the trainer event. Our expectation is that what we're going to go through today are materials that you will eventually deliver to your crews to get your crews ready to go. So a lot of the discussion will be about, what needs to be done in preparation. So we've put together a little list of things here for kind of an agenda for today. We're going to talk about some of the resources that you'll have at your fingertips. We'll talk about crew registration process and what are the steps necessary to get all your payments and your roster uploaded. We'll talk about the advisor training. This is the adult advisors, what's necessary for them to take when it comes to training before they head up there. We'll also spend a few minutes talking about how the crew should be organized and who's in charge and who's there to keep everyone out of trouble. And then we'll spend just a minute or so talking about the personal gear list and best how to handle that. Our last couple things are kind of homework, which is the menu planning and making some selections of what kind of food you'd like to have for the trek. And then we'll talk about some of the future training sessions, and of course we can handle some Q&A at the end. All right. Well, the number one resource I want to make sure everybody is aware of is, of course, is our website. We put a lot of effort and there's a lot of content on the website. And one of the things I want to point out to you is if you go to our wnyscouting.org/Birchbark, that takes you to the top level page that is all 3 of our programs. And right now I've got it organized so that the Adirondack Adventure is our first program. And what you're going to do is you're going to click into that. And from there, when you get to that page, you'll get to the program specific page. And from there, you're going to click on resources. And that resources page is what we're going to talk about today. And the resources page has a number of PDFs and supporting documents. One of them is the trifold brochure that you'll be talking about. Here we go. One of them is the trifold brochure. This is a promotional piece that you can use to share with your scouts or prospective scouts. The big piece that we think is really important is this advisor handbook. And what we're going to end up doing is we'll spend quite a bit of time talking about the advisor handbook and some of the different resources that are in it. Then we'll also talk about the canoe tripping handbook. This is a set of skills that really will help with a lot of the basics of portaging and preparing meals and how to set up camp and these kinds of things. It's a great book that one of our early founders put together. And last but not least is the Advisor Paddler's Guide and Map. And all of you that have submitted your deposits will be getting a packet with all these 4 resources put together in a single box, and we'll send it all out to you as soon as you have it. All right, another important resource I want to make sure you're aware of is, of course, our guide crew. And this year we're going to do something a little different. We're going to assign crews a guide very early, and then that guide will be somebody that you can turn to get some information, or have them come to your meetings, or help with training modules at camp, these kinds of things. And so, we have well over 12 active guides at this point. Some of them are very senior and have been, on dozens, if not, probably tens of dozens of canoe trips over their lifetime. So we'll get you connected with a guide very quickly. And I want to encourage you to use that individual. It's really a big asset. When we get our satisfaction surveys at the end, we said, we really liked having a guide to help us through the preparation process. All right, then moving on, let's talk about the Advisor Handbook and get into some detail. This is, I spent a lot of time this winter getting this for you guys. So basically the biggest thing is it has a to-do list in it, and essentially what we're looking for is for you to, it's on page 8 of the Advisor Handbook, and I'm just going to pull it up here for a quick second. I'm going to tell you about how we've organized this, the page. So essentially what I've done is I put all the things that you need to do and roughly put together a schedule for when you need to have them done on the to-do list. And it boils down to, things that you need to do to get your crew signed up and ready, when you need to make payments, when you need to do the various training, when you should go through some of your packing lists, when the menu is due, these kinds of things. So all this is all on page 8 in the Advisor to-do list. And I strongly encourage you to spend some time with that Advisor Handbook, and go through that to-do list is your first stop. That's very, very important. And I think that'll help you understand the tasks that are in front of you and what the priorities are. All right. Next, let's spend a couple of minutes talking about crew registration process. We have a new crew registration process that some of you have already completed, and thank you very much for doing that. But I want to kind of step everybody else through it. So some of you may have, well, all of you have completed your what's called reservation request form. Just to kind of let you know how this works. It comes to me, we look at our schedule, we look at what availability there is, and based on your choices, then we come back and how many youth and adults you've got, and we'll respond back with, yes, we can accommodate that week. And then that happens in that confirmation email, is the, that's good. But then you need to make a deposit, and the deposit will be done through the online reservation system. The confirmation email will send you a link to the reservation system. And with that, then you'll either create an account or log in your existing account if you're a part of the GNFC, and make that deposit payment. And hopefully, if you have a good idea what your crew looks like, you would enter those people in at that time. You can always go back and make adjustments if youth have to drop out because of the summer school, or you get somebody extra that joins your crew. You can always go in and out on that registration form. And then throughout the spring, then you'll be making payments through that. So the hard goal is you have to have 100% of your payments in for all your participants no later than June 1st. June 1st is the big deadline. So I want to make sure you got that. We got a little sneak peek of what it looks like. This is the registration system. The first screen after you log in, you'll be faced with is which week. And of course, that should be based on what we sent to you as a confirmation, right? If we say, yes, we have room for you in week 3, then please register your crew in week 3. I know it's maybe tempting to say, hey, wait, our first choice of week 2 is available. Well, if we didn't say it's available, it's not available. So please just make that happen. All right. And we know that these registration systems can be a little daunting, but so far we had a couple crews navigate it, so congratulations. All right, next we want to talk about the crew and the crew organization. And this is sometimes where I think the adults and the youth, they kind of get their roles and responsibilities a little inverted. And it's very, very important to understand that how a crew is organized, especially once you get up into the Adirondacks, It's organized so that the crew leader and the assistant crew leader, these are two youth, really are in charge. This is a leadership responsibility, a leadership opportunity for them. And this doesn't just begin the minute you land up in the Adirondacks. It begins the minute you start working with your youth on their Birchbark expedition. So all through this next couple of months, next few months, the crew leader and assistant crew leader should have an important role in making some of the steps that we're going to go over today. The role of the adult advisors is somewhat is an advisory role. That's why we call them advisors. We don't call them adult leaders. We call them adult advisors on purpose. And the idea being is your job is to help them make that happen, right? So you're going to nudge them forward, make sure that they take care of the right things at the right time. But they are really, the adults are really not the leaders. They are just advising. And I can't stress that enough. And I know sometimes it gets goofed up and from a priority standpoint. And you're going to have some nasty consequences too, by the way. And I think, Dave, you like to tell the story about, if something goes wrong on a trek and the adults design the trek instead of the youth, guess who gets blamed for the entire rest of the week? So it's important that the youth, make a lot of these decisions, like, what are we eating? Where are we going? How difficult is the trek? Those kinds of things. All right, then there's 4 positions underneath that. There's a quartermaster, a navigator, a medic, first aider, and a chaplain's aide. And specific position descriptions or responsibilities are in that advisor handbook, pages 30 and 31. And one of those 2 pages is also a duty roster. And the idea being is that you can choose, and this again would be the crew leader and assistant crew leader would organize this, but you can choose, does somebody want to be the quartermaster for the whole week and be responsible for managing the food supply? Or, do you want to take turns and have different people do different jobs on different days? Is one guy really good at ropes and knots and he's responsible for the bear bags, or do you want to rotate that skill day by day? And these are all decisions that the youth can make. So that's all covered in the material, but the reason why I'm kind of reinforcing it today is from this point forward, it's important that you have now a crew leader, assistant crew leader, and by next month you should have your navigator figured out. So once you get your crew together, have them do a little, nomination and then an election, and get your crew leader and assistant crew leader figured out. And of course, if you got a small crew, you can combine some of these positions. The chaplain's aide is a pretty lightweight job. The medic, first aider's got a little bit of work to do before you go and getting the kit together. Navigators can obviously spend a lot of time with us on maps and planning the trek, and the quartermaster is going to be responsible for the crew gear. All right, let's talk about paperwork, our favorite topic. All right, the informed consent form. We depend on the standard multi-part form that the BSA issues. You can download that. There's a copy, an example copy in our advisor's handbook that includes an extra page. There is a description of what your youth and or adult will be going through on the Birchbark expedition. And we put that in there for a purpose, because this informed consent health form has to be signed off by the family physician. And the family physician doesn't know what a Birchbark expedition is, from a ride to the moon. So that extra page is important. So you're going to want to make sure that when they go in with their health forms, they have a copy of that extra page so that the health professional understands what the youth are getting themselves into. And again, you want to make multiple copies when it's all signed off. You want to have, one with you when you're on your trek and one left in the car when you get back. So you're going to make some copies. And the best way to do it is to have a binder of some type or another to keep them all in. All right.
Alan,
Yes.
could I add that the important there, both parents have contact information and signatures around the form, especially if it's a situation where the scout lives with one or the other parent and they doesn't live with both parents. You can just think about those kind of problems that would be created if both of the parents didn't know what was going on.
Yep,
Thank you.
no, that's a great point, a great extra point. Yep, it is important that we have all that. All right, now I'm going to turn it over to Hank, and Hank is going to talk about some of the advisor training requirements. And Hank, when you want me to move, just tell me in advance, all right?
So as Alan mentioned, we have about a dozen train guides, and we train throughout the course of the year. We do online training, we do refresher courses in canoe skills and wilderness first aid and CPR, and a whole bunch of other skill sets that are required on the trek. But it's also important that the advisors go through and have the backup training for, God forbid, one of us were to have an accident or an injury, or we needed to have additional support for something. We want our advisors to go through specific training. So most importantly, making certain that everyone's registered with the BSA. You have to be able to identify what troop or crew that you're with. Need to attend these advisor sessions and watch the modules. And then really take the time to go through those handbooks. It's pretty overwhelming to try to do it in one sitting. You're probably going to need 3 or 4 doses of it to kind of make sure that you understand the modules and the training centers and the books that we give you. Okay, next slide, Al. The advisor's youth protection is mandatory every 2 years for all adults above age 18 and older. If you've got an older scout that's coming back from college on a trek, they also need to go through that youth protection training. It's really important. Must be current through the time that you launch on the trek. So checking those dates are important and reminding any of the adults that are going along with it. And again, myscouting.com, each of the registered scouts have an account, and this training is available online. Next. So in addition, online, again, with my scouting account, safety of floats is recommended. And I would strongly encourage it, all adults, and perhaps even one of your training session with the scouts, is to go through the module with all of the scouts so they understand it. Takes about 20 minutes. There's 9 critical points that go along with the training. It can be done in person, but we're going to encourage everybody to try to do that online so that we can maximize our time together, both at the shakedown and at our base camp. If we can take that half hour and add it to some hands-on experiences, that's all for the better. So again, very important. And safety float needs to be renewed every couple of years. Next. Safe swim defense is another one that can be done online and needs to be done online by our adults. Again, about 20-minute training sessions. You go through short modules. There's a couple of quiz questions, and you go back at it, and it will give you that solid foundation. As in the Adirondacks, you're going to be spending a lot of time in the water. The boys are going to want to swim, and making sure you know the safe swim defense, because there'll be areas that may be safe for jumping off the rocks, maybe not. You need to make sure you got your lifeguards in place. You got to have your guards, your spotters, and so forth. And this, the safe swim defense, and then the safety afloat will be really, really important for you. Next. Strongly encourage one of the advisors or adults there to take a wilderness first aid or CPR course. We'll be organizing those within council. It's a 16-hour course. You can do, it's a hybrid model. Online, you can do the course at your leisure at home, and then there's a practicum component to it that we bring together and practice those skills to make sure that you're comfortable. Again, God forbid a guy gets injured on the trail, someone else needs to be able to have a higher level of understanding of the wilderness first aid and CPR. The crews can choose to go different places. The Red Cross does it, ECSI, the Adirondack ADK group, and some sporting goods stores will actually offer it. So you can choose which one you want to go to. Next.
Awesome. Yep, very good.
Hank,
All right,
let me throw one more thing in on the
Sure,
wilderness
Dave.
first aid. The Williamsville Adult Education Program runs the wilderness first aid. So you can check with your local school district. They might have it also.
That's fantastic. That's good. Yes, well, we would like to have all our guides come back, so we think that's very important. All right. So one of the other areas that we always get a lot of questions on is, what kind of personal gear do we need? So we've got a roster of personal gear on page 16, the Advisor Handbook. It's very detailed, goes through, what equipment you need in the base camp, what do you need to take with yourself in the backcountry. probably the one biggest question we get is, how big of a dry sack do we need? And by the way, that's 20 liter. You should jot that down, or two smaller 10 liters. And the other thing to keep in mind is that space and weight are critical. So that 0-degree sleeping bag that Johnny uses in his winter camping experience is way overkill, takes up way too much space. So be cognizant of the space. And we also talk to people about how to pack. And this is just one important thing I think I want to kind of set your mind is that, you really, what you're going on is like 3 trips that are back to back. The first one is basically car camping. When you come to base camp, it's car camping. Your car and your vehicle will be there. You'll be setting up a tent and you'll be staying in the tent for a few nights. But you do have the luxury of basically all the room you would ever possibly need. So your travel clothes and toiletries, they can be large. You're going to need your sleeping bag and maybe some of the day pack, the fanny pack stuff while you're in base camp. You'll need it certainly on the trek. And when you return back to base camp, if you stay the night, Friday night, you'll need that sleeping bag again and sleeping pad. So, that kind of fits into that middle section there. And then you're going to have your backcountry clothes and your change of clothes in the backcountry. And when you read that list, you'll say, wait a second here. We're going on a 5-day trek and there's only 2 sets of clothes. That's all you need. And we'll teach you how to do laundry in the backcountry, and you wear each set of clothes a couple of days in a row. And packing all those in one of the dry bags is obviously necessary when you're in the backcountry. The one set of clothes will go on your body, the other set of clothes will go in your dry bag. And all that should be put ideally into a duffel bag that goes in the car when you come up to our base camp, hopefully with the crew member's name on the bag. So that's just something to keep in mind. Again, we get sometimes people overdo it or underdo it, and so we're just trying to save a lot of headache right up front. All right, now we're going to talk about the canoe route selection process. A little different this year. A lot of years we have a face-to-face in February and we get all the crews together, but we got a lot of crews from out of town planned for this year. And so what we're going to do is we're going to set you up with your guide, and the guide will reach out to you. And by then you should have your canoe route handbook and also the map. And on our website, you can find some suggestions. There's also a number, probably 50 suggested tracks in the handbook. The paddler's guide, I'm sorry. And what we're going to do is we're going to suggest that you spend some time with your crews to go look over some of these suggestions and start to narrow it down, get oriented with your map, and then spend some time with your guide and select a route that you would like to do. There's a worksheet that's in the handbook that you would then use to fill that out. And then you would then send it to us so that we have a rough idea of what you're planning on doing. Fortunately, the Adirondacks, we have a lot of flexibility, but there's lots of choices. And the trek should be in the the upper northwestern corner of the Adirondacks, in the St. Regis Canoe area, slightly to the south of that. So you're within a few hours drive of our base camp. So that's going to be the plan for this year. We're not going to try to get everybody into a conference room and hammer through it all together this year. It's a little different.
Alan, could I add in
Yeah.
here, the first thing you want to do before you get too deep into the paddler's guide and the whole Adirondacks map, look at the 8 or 10 suggested tracks that we have on our website, and it describes them and also rates them like moderate, difficult, and easy. And what you want to do with that is get the boys together and get their input. What do they really want to do? Do they want to go 50 miler? Do they want to try to do 75 miles and be the king of the mountain? Or do they want to go out and have a layover day in the middle, or maybe even 2 layover days where they could fish and do some other stuff? But if they've been on some other different high adventure program or treks with different programs, they have a pretty good idea of what they want to do. And if you've come with a bigger crew or maybe a bigger unit, you may have one of the crews are young And they don't want to go as far as the older crews, but size them up. And this is a good example of our little talk about have the boys plan it. Have them give us some ideas, and then ideally before or after you have that talk, we'll have a guide assigned with you, and the boys can ask the guide questions and get roughed out. And then you can start looking at the specific areas that you want to go.
Right. Yeah, that really is the best way to handle it. And as we said earlier, then the crew owns the route. And if it's really difficult, it was their decision. If it was too easy, it was their decision. So it's very, very important. It's all part of the leadership and growing experience that they get out of this. All right, another piece of homework that we're going to send you right away is an updated menu selection process. There's a sample of that inside the handbook. Every year we have to deal with our vendors and the availability of certain meals. We'll update that form. We'll be sending it to you in an email. And as soon as you get it, if you would do us a favor and plan that as part of your next meeting with the crew, to go through the menu selection. There's quite a few choices for breakfast, lunches, and dinners. And based on that, return that as soon as possible. You can either just snap a picture of it with your phone and send, text it or email it back to us. And then that way we can get your food on order and make sure you get what you want and work that out. A couple of considerations about food. One of the really most important things is surveying your crew and find out if there's any special dietary needs. We're required by the state and the BSA to make sure that we provide food that is compatible with the use, either dietary restrictions, whether it be religious or medical. And we need to have as much notice as we possibly can. I took a trek out a number of years ago, and we were packing the food at base camp, and one of the youth said, "Hey, I'm vegan, right?" It's like, oh, when did this come up? So we had to jump in the car, run off to a sporting goods store, and buy special food, on the spot. Would have been a lot easier if we knew about it ahead of time. Also, too, you kind of want to start thinking about your itinerary and about quick breakfast versus cooked breakfast. Some of the meals, like pancakes, eggs, these kinds of things, take a while to cook. They take a stove, you get dirty dishes, and if you got a long day planned, you really don't want to be doing a breakfast like that. Conversely, one of the breakfasts is the Pop-Tarts. It's big and it's heavy. It's a great meal to have in base camp for that Monday morning. It's not really a great idea to have too many Pop-Tarts in the food pack for the week. It's big because they're big and heavy and take up a lot of space. All right. We also have on the personal gear list, we list a couple of things that are not provided. So we don't provide coffee, tea, hot sauce, sugar, for example, for beverages. So you'll want to survey your adults as to what they want to do for that. Probably the best thing to do is sort of tell them, find those little individual little packets, like Starbucks has got those little packets or tea bags or whatever they like, and bring their own. That way, again, it's on them.
Alan, can
Yes.
I repeat it? Repeat on the
Sure.
special dietary needs. In the past, we've had some scouts have had some very specific dietary needs, and the parents want to volunteer to, let us get it, and you don't have to look for it. We know what he wants, and that does two things. It ends up with a lot of extra food to pack. And Dave Mitchell, who Mark, he was your guide. He does all of our dietary stuff. He's been doing it for about 12 years. He is faced and prepared for any kind of dietary restriction or problem that you had. And if you have a scout with a special diet needed, please have Dave Mitchell contact them, the parents, phone numbers and emails, and he can talk to them, and he's probably dealt with it. But if it's an issue that he hasn't dealt with, by him talking to the parents, can work out and make sure the scouts' needs are met, and we'll have the stuff ahead of time. We don't have to go looking for it when we get to base camp.
Great.
Okay.
No, that's very important. And one last thing I'll say about this before we go off is we provide plenty of food. You should see the mountains of food that come back to base camp sometimes. you don't need to worry about whether or not you're going to have enough food. That's a big piece of, we make sure you got enough calories in those pouches when you leave. Okay. All right, so let's talk about some of the future training modules. One of them, we did talk about the advisor session number 2. We'll get into some of the route planning selection. We'll have some other content or material for that also. We've got that scheduled for March 28th. If you can get into the GNFC office, we'd love to get you there. Then we could do it face-to-face. If not, we'll coordinate a time to do it virtual with your guide at a different time. It should be the crew leader and the navigator for the planning of the route selection, and of course it's bring the materials that you've been supplied, right? The paddler's guide, the maps, and the worksheets, and a general idea of what the crew wants to do relative to difficulty and complexity. The big session is what we call our canoe trip shakedown, and we host this here at our Camp Scout Haven here in the GNFC. If I think all the out-of-town crews are too far away to do that. So we're refreshing the materials for that. And what we're going to do is, for the out-of-town crews, we're going to send you a copy of this so you can plan your own shakedown. And you can either do that all one day or you can split it up in a couple different days. But walk you through real quick how this works. We really, really stress that every one of the crew members attends the shakedown. And the reason why we do this is we want the scouts to go through the beginning of the learning process for some of these skills while they're still at home, basically, right, at a shakedown event. And what this does then is it eliminates some of the frustration that would happen if they're, it's the first day out, it's Monday, you've paddled all day, and you just can't get these knots figured out, or you just can't get the Kelly kettle started, or that can get really frustrating, and it's the last thing you want to do is have a frustrated scout on the first day. So we really, really want to make sure we teach them those skills, the basics before they go and get a chance to put hands-on practice some of this. So, preparing water, how to portage, how to prepare a meal, all these things. We're going to make sure that happens before they're actually in the back country. So we asked the crews that are here in the GNFC district to, come with some water, a trail lunch, and a hearty snack to that, to the shakedown. It starts at 9 o'clock. You'll have you out of there by 4 o'clock at Scout Haven. Come dressed like you plan on pushing off for that first day on Monday into the backcountry, so we can kind of see what you're planning on wearing. And bring, your personal gear as much as, I would bring a reasonable amount of it in your dry bags, because we're going to test your dry bags and see if they work. And there's going to be quite a bit more in the leader's guide when it comes to, the advisor orientation book. So, all right. So with that, that kind of wraps up the program for today. I know we cover 38 minutes of content, and trying to keep it quick and easy. So just kind of looking real quick. I don't know, Mark, do you have any questions? Or
I don't know if you mentioned swim test. Is that something that we'll handle, or do we try to take care of that beforehand? Or
yeah, swim tests aren't necessary. That is one of the things that's on the list, the to-do list. At least our council does them in March timeframe. I haven't heard anything from the aquatics committee, unless Dave, you have about any dates yet.
Yeah, I'm on the aquatics committee. The swim tests, we have dates penciled in, and it's tentatively scheduled with the 4 different school systems we use. They aren't going to commit to finalization probably until a week or 2 before then. So we'll have time to let everybody know. But they're very cautious about scheduling stuff and then not being able to follow through with new restrictions that come on. But we'll have that. The troops coming from out of town, your council may be doing pre-camp swim tests for your camps. They may have some other ways you can do it. In New York State, there's a little more restrictions on who does the swim tests and stuff, but outside of New York State, check with your councils. Most of the country an adult leader can do the swim test. We have a form that you can follow. It gives you all the steps and restrictions, and the responsibility the person that's making the form takes on, that he's make sure everybody does it the way it's supposed to be done. So you can do it that way. So every state is different. This year we've got a whole lot more out of state than we do in New York.
Yep.
And then I want to go back to the previous page. We were talking about the different skills. Alan mentioned a Kelly kettle and a dining fly and a bear bag. We are in the process of trying to get 10, 15-minute training videos on those. And as soon as we get them finalized, we'll send them out to everybody, and you can use it as part of your training outline, training schedule before you go up there.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, good. All right. Well, I want to say thank everyone for listening in today, and we look forward to having you, both hear about your preparations on email, and hopefully see you at our next meeting and at our shakedown. So with that, I'm going to say hope everyone has a great night, and thanks for listening in.